This is the ultimate camera comparison video of Samsung Galaxy A35 versus Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition. Older flagship versus newer mid-range. Let the battle begin. This is the ultimate camera comparison video of Galaxy A35 versus S21 Fan Edition, and they might have the same value. Of course, A35 is a mid-range phone, while S21 FE can only be found on the used market, and it will be the same price as Galaxy A35. Today is a really bright sunny day in Canada and we will shoot a lot of outdoor shots. We're also shooting crowds, flowers, and random colorful things. We're utilizing all sensors, the triple camera setup of ultra-wide, wide, and telephoto of S21 Fan Edition, and ultra-wide main and macro of Galaxy A35. Let's start with color profile and saturation, and this is a mixed bag for me. It's really hard to determine the colors. I guess Galaxy S21 Fan Edition is more consistent than A35 because when the AI or scene optimizer of A35 kicks in, it kind of gives a different types of color profile, but S21 Fan Edition is a little bit consistent. Galaxy A35 is natural looking compared to S21 FE. While most of the shots outdoors, that's the case looking at the grass and the sky. It has a darker contrast and shadows are crushed a little bit. Looking at the darker areas of the photos like the panda bear and the ceiling, A35 crushes the shadows. It has a cooler white balance in general compared to Galaxy S21 FE, and you would notice that the background blur on this phone is not as strong as the one you can see on the older flagship competition. Surprisingly, even though Samsung uses a 50 megapixel sensor with pixel binning technology, if you check the images on a bigger screen, they have the same details on a 12 megapixel JPEG, but I think in every 50 shots that I took, Galaxy A35 has better autofocus. There were a couple of shots that were missed on a Galaxy S21 FE, could be the aging sensor, but who knows. While Galaxy S21 FE is generally more saturated outdoors compared to Galaxy A35, if you look at the colors green, blue, yellow, and red. Of course, it's not always the case because again, if the scene optimizer of A35 kicks in, then this could be a different story. You will also see that the images coming out of this phone has better exposure than A35, but for some reason on portrait shots, it's like centered metering wherein the subject pops out and the background darkens. It looks better though on this older flagship. I also noticed on close-up shots the background is a little bit creamier on S21 FE, and the ultra-wide lens on this phone is so much better and has more details than Galaxy A35. And speaking of details, if you look on the 3x optical zoom versus the digital crop of A35, obviously you will have better and more detailed images. Quickly looking on the specification, Galaxy A35 has triple camera setup of 50 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 5 megapixel macro, while S21 Fan Edition is 12 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 8 megapixel telephoto with 3x reach. Both of them supports 4K video recording both front and back. And looking at all sensors from the ultra-wide main and digital crop, colors are consistent. I only noticed that you will have a better 30x reach with a dedicated telephoto on Galaxy S21 FE. This is the new Samsung Galaxy A35 in 4K 30 FPS. What I like about this phone is the build quality, the battery life, the big screen. It's like Galaxy A55 with a processor of Galaxy A54. And in terms of camera performance, there's a nice shot difference between A35 and A55. Sadly, there's no dual video recording on this phone like the more expensive Samsung phones. Let's talk about portrait mode, and these two phones produces really good portrait shots. I would start with the cutout and subject separation. They're good on both phones. They are spot on. Unlike the pixel competitions and some of the Chinese phones, Samsung phones are known to have perfected that cutout with their portrait mode. Galaxy A35 is generally brighter and it's a warmer white balance that makes the image looks inviting. I think when people are looking on portrait shots, warmer skin tone is something that makes them more attractive to look on. It has a creamier background blur and there's a bokeh balls on the new Samsung mid-range, which Galaxy S21 FE doesn't, even though it's a flagship phone, something that the newer Samsung phones offer. And because it's warmer, it also affects the colors. I feel like it's more saturated on the newer mid-range and sometimes it has better autofocus and details than S21 FE. While the older flagship Galaxy S21 Fan Edition is natural looking, it also has a cooler white balance compared to the newest mid-range, and it has a darker contrast compared to the competition. You would see this on the hair and the darker background. It has a white skin effect and a little bit smoother than the competition. It has a gradual blur which I like because I feel it's coming from a proper camera, and I think one of the best reasons to get this is you have two focal lengths from 24mm and 85mm portrait shots. Going for the selfie, I think both of them are similar looking images. The only difference is the white balance. It's warmer on Galaxy A35, but the level of details are the same. Now, going for the night shot, this is where both phones separate each other. You would think that because Galaxy A35 is the newest phone, it should have better night shot performance, but then again, it is still a mid-range phone. You would notice that Galaxy S21 Fan Edition is better exposure than the mid-range competition. It is also sharper, more detailed, and less blurry than Galaxy A35. Galaxy A35 on pitch black condition tends to be soft and noisy, and looking at all three sensors, the ultra-wide lens of Galaxy S21 FE is superior than Galaxy A35. This is Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition in 4K 30 FPS. It was given a flagship processor, the Snapdragon 888, with a smaller screen and a smaller battery life. What I don't like about this phone is the plastic back. The build quality is not as good as the newer mid-range. Now, although older, this has dual video recording. You can see front and back if you need this for vlogging. Let's talk about flaring in from the ultra-wide to the main sensor. I think both phones are the same, even with the 3x optical zoom of S21 FE, and on night shots, they will perform the same. Looking at the highlights, this is where these two phones differ. If you zoom into this photo, you will notice that there's more information on Galaxy A35 than S21 FE. Another win for the newest mid-range is the macro capability. Since S21 FE has this proper telephoto camera, Samsung has given A35 a dedicated macro sensor. Looking at sharpness, starting with the ultra-wide lens, the level of sharpness is almost the same. Also the same with the main sensor's 12-megapixel JPEG. The 3x optical zoom of the S21 FE is better in terms of sharpness, and it also has a farther reach of 30 times. And lastly, details. This is the 50-megapixel of S21 FE and 12-megapixel JPEG of Galaxy A35. And if you look closely, I don't think there's much of a difference in terms of details between the newer mid-range and the older flagship. This is the video stabilization test plus the zoom test. While walking, Galaxy A35 only has one focal length using the main sensor, while we are starting with the ultra-wide on Galaxy S21 Fan Edition. Now we're switching to the main sensor. Look at the quality. You can see a little bit more on Galaxy S21 FE in terms of exposure. And obviously, if you zoom in, you can see the wildlife on Galaxy S21 FE better. This is the regular video on Samsung Galaxy A35 and the portrait video on Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition. You can see a little bit of background blur. This is like the cinematic footage on iPhones and Pixels. This is the stabilization test using the main sensor in 4K 30 FPS, natural looking on A35 and more saturated on S21 Fan Edition. The newer mid-range is slightly better stabilization. Now going for the selfie shot again in 4K 30 FPS, the newer mid-range is slightly punched in compared to the wider S21 FE, but in terms of stabilization, you would notice that Galaxy A35 is better, again natural looking on A35, and slightly brighter exposure on Galaxy S21 FE. We're also testing the slow motion, and both phones has the same quality. And this is the super slow motion. You can only record 8 seconds on the newer Galaxy A35. And lastly, low light video and the sheer performance of the sensors. You would notice the Galaxy A35 is noisier and it skips framing while panning. I think at this point, the newer mid-range caught up with the competition, the older Fan Edition. This is a matter of preference. You would still get more features out of the older S21 FE, better night shots and multiple focal lengths on the portrait mode and video recording. But if you like better audio and video stabilization plus natural looking images, then switching to the Galaxy A35 is perfectly fine.